All right, here we go. So thank you, John, for providing this safe forum, and welcome everybody. I'm so happy to see you all, small group that we are. So let me introduce myself. Mi'iha nehinkem netwanya netina komikrabet naha tongve koi mixkanakan koi yo eme aweshkoneha ekwa awo mane tehovet amet. So I am saying hello, my name is Tina. I'm Gabrielino Tongva, Ventureño Chumash, and Yoeme. And I'm very happy to be here with all of you today. And since we are such a small group, if we can just take a moment to introduce ourselves, at least your name, the tribe or peoples you're representing, any organization you're representing, and anything you're feeling today. Oh, your tribal lands are calling from too. So you want to start, Marcus?
Marcus, I am a sixth Choctaw, but that's not a California tribe. I just really support California making amends for the things that we did wrong. I love California, and I think it's the most progressive place, but there's some things we have not gotten right. There was a genocide in the 1850s. Very proud of our governor apologizing, but not enough. And until we take it as far as possible to where the indigenous California is saying, hey, that's a really good try to attempt to rectify the horrible in there. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Liana?
Hi, my name's Liana. My pronouns are she or they, and I'm calling in from Tongva land, specifically in Glendale, and I am Yoeme as well, and I'm also Quechuan on my mother's side. And yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm 23 weeks pregnant, so sometimes you'll see me just be like taking deep breaths because I tend to lose my breath easily lately. But so yeah, I'm feeling good today. So we have a little spirit with us as well.
Glad you can both make it. And I'm just kind of going in order of who I see on the screen. So Joy?
Hello, my name is Joy Holland. I'm the librarian at the UCLA American Indian Studies Center, which is on Tongva land. I'm a proud ally and guest on Tongva land. I'm from Hawaii Island originally, where I was raised, but also a guest to Kanaka Oiwi. And it's my pleasure to participate in Return California. I see some strides being made, and I would love to help any tribe with gathering information or resources. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I see Ansu John. Do you go by Ansu?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here, and nice to be in such an intimate gathering in Zoom, where I'm normally one of like 40 or 50 or over that. I'm originally from India. I have lived for many years in Virginia, and I'm a fairly recent transplant to California. And I echo Marcus's sentiments about California, having read the history of it. And I have a geography and philosophy training by background, but I've really begun to develop a course on indigenous knowledge systems as distinct from just traditional ecological knowledge or ethnobotany, or these silos in which people tend to compartmentalize the indigenous contribution, because I think metaphysically and just cosmically understanding this unifying way of being and way of existing and way of seeing through language, through culture, just through your expression, is very distinct from that modern post-Enlightenment Western rational model of knowledge, which is just the only way to be apparently in our schooling and in our colleges. So I'm trying to develop a course based on that, just a 6-week course And I'm learning a lot from the American Indian traditions, although, you know, I'm obviously indigenous to India and have been lucky enough to learn a lot about relationship to the land from my ancestors. And I think that transfers everywhere in the world. Everyone is indigenous somewhere. But it's been very heartening to see the strong voice of California indigenous people. And Virginia, where I came from, of course, that history has been is just a longer history of genocide and erasure and denial. And so I'm just very pleased to meet you. Thank you.
Whose
Great
land
to
are
meet
you on, Sue?
You know, I lived in the LA County area, so it was Tongva, but now I'm in Idlewild, and I'm really not sure whether it's Kauai or what it is. Maybe.
Yeah, I believe that is Kauai territory.
Yeah,
Maybe Serrano.
sure, yeah.
Well, good to see you. And I see Carrie Ungerman just was able to get in. We're taking a minute to go around and just introduce ourselves, the lands that you're calling in from.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm sorry it took a few minutes. My name's Carrie and I use she, her pronouns. And I live in Tonga lands, and also what I've learned, Fernandinho Tataviam as well. And for now called Studio City, East Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome. And I think, I don't know if I'm gonna say this right, Anusha?
Oh, hi, yes, you said it perfectly right. So my name's Anusha, and well, I guess I was born in Tongva land, but now I'm in Austria in Europe.
Oh.
And yeah, I started doing my PhD and I realized how much I didn't learn with everything going on in the past 10 years. I wanted to learn more and more. And so I'm looking into wildfires, and I want to learn more and learn how to be useful and in solidarity. So I'm trying to figure that out. And I came across the Return California website, and I thought that might be a nice place to start. So thank you for letting me join.
Oh,
Did you happen to
welcome.
see? Oh, I'm sorry, Tina.
No, that's okay. Go ahead, John.
Did you happen to see last month's roundtable? Is that how you found us?
No, I just caught it just now. I'm not sure how. I think maybe on social media or something. I just caught it, and then I subscribed immediately. And so this was the first email I got. So I have to go and explore some more.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah, last month's roundtable was all about cultural burning. So
Okay,
yeah,
thanks.
I thought
I will definitely check that out. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And I manage all of the social media platforms and the website and everything. So if you have any questions or you want to talk, please, this is my life. I love it. So.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
That's very kind. I will definitely be in touch.
For sure, great.
Yeah, John's awesome. And I'm just today's guest co-host. So I wanted to start with the land acknowledgement, if that's okay. So I wanted to acknowledge my ancestors, the original Tarahatam of Tawanga, today referred to as Los Angeles, parts of Orange County, parts of San Bernardino County, all of Los Angeles County, and the 4 Southern Channel Islands. And I just honor their contributions in living in harmony with the lands, the waters, the minerals, the plants and animal relatives here and across our large unceded territory. And I say, Yarar como krehenuk vetam, I remember the ancestors. Awesh konreha ahihirom koehinayanar, I thank my elders and teachers. Karukanakre eotarhem, I stand with our children and the 7 generations to come. And I just ask that all of us remember to walk gently upon our Earth Mother and give her the love and respect that she deserves. So with that, I guess we'll go ahead and get started with the presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and share screen. I'll start this slideshow from the beginning, so we'll maximize it. Okay, so I'm introducing you today to a newly formed group called the Acjachemen Tongva Land Conservancy. This logo was made by Al Frank, who is Tongva and Acjachemen. And this is an organization which I'll go in through the slides to introduce you a little bit to our members, as well as the lands that we are seeking to caretake upon. So first, our vision statement. The Acjachemen Tongva Land Conservancy, it's a partnership between the Acjachemen and Tongva descendants committed to acquiring, protecting, and preserving our shared ancestral homelands. We seek to reestablish Native people stewardship in the lands integral to our identity and culture. This land conservancy uses traditional cultural knowledge to guard our lifeways and conserve the natural environment. We aspire to create awareness of our relationship with nature and to restore balance between ourselves and our environment. We strive to create spaces that can act as vehicles of healing and learning. We perpetuate our mission through our community education and outreach together with cultural and environmental preservation programs. So on our website, which I'm going to share at the very end, we have our full bios, which are quite extensive, but I wanted to just highlight a little bit about our group here. So Dustin Murphy is our president, and he is councilman and cultural resource monitor for the Juaneño Band of Mission Indians, Acjachemen Nation Velardes, because there are more than one Acjachemen Nation. And he has a Bachelor of Science in Business Management from Cal State University, Long Beach at Pavungna, which Pavungna is another one of our sacred sites. Myself, I am the treasurer, and I am Gabrielino Tongva, Chumash, Mexican Acjachemen, and I'm on the Tongva Language Committee, as well as a student learning the Smuich dialect of Chumash, which is basically Valvareño, Santa Barbara area. I'm also a singer, songwriter, storyteller, and poet, and I really am enjoying using our ancestral languages to share artistic expression and cultural knowledge. And then we have Wallace Cleaves. He is our acting secretary, and he's a member of the Gabrielino Tongva tribe. He's an associate professor of teaching and associate director for UC Riverside's writing program. And he also has a PhD in medieval English literature. And then we have our 3 general board members, which is Angela Mooney DRC. She's an Acjachemen environmental justice organizer and the executive director and founder of Sacred Places Institute, as well as co-founder of the United Coalition to Protect Panay, which is another sacred site in the Acjachemen territory. Angela holds a BA and JD with a concentration in critical race studies and focus on federal Indian law. And then we have Charles Sepulveda, who is both Acjachemen and Tongva. And he's an associate professor at the University of Utah in Ethnic Studies Department. And he earned his PhD in Ethnic Studies at UCR. Charles is currently working on his first book project, tentatively titled Indigenous Nations versus Junípero Serra, Resisting the Spanish Imaginary. And then we have Anne Marie Mendoza. She's our youngest member, and she is Tongva and Mexican. She has a bachelor's degree in political science from UCLA and received their master's in American Indian Studies. Anne-Marie is currently a PhD student at UCLA Urban Planning Program. And one thing we're really proud of too is that Anne-Marie directed The Aqueduct Between Us, the film that talks about the Paiute and the Tongva and the people of Los Angeles and where we get our waters from. And she's a continued voice for sacred waters. And then this is our board members. These 2 people did not want to be highlighted, but I'm not going to leave them out because we couldn't do this without them. So Joyce Stanfield Perry, she's our president, and she is also an enrolled member of the Juaneño Band of Mission Indians, Acjachemen Nation, Balardis. And she has just been a critical voice for safeguarding all of our tribal lands and sacred sites and culture. And then Maria Hinojosa, she's our project manager and really runs things behind the scenes. She put together this beautiful presentation, and she just a miracle. She does so much. So we're really blessed to have her on our team. And then we wanted to form an elders council and a youth council. So this is, we're a new organization and this is new in the makings. But so far for our elders council, we have Rebecca Robles, who is also a Acjachemen. And she also is just a constant protector for our sacred sites. And she leads in a real gentle firmness, I like to say, because she's very encouraging and loving, but she rules with a firm hand, and that's necessary in many, many cases. For our youth council, we don't have any youth yet, but we are going to be putting together a video with the histories of Bolsa Chica and why it's so important to protect the sacred site. And so one of the things we want to do is bring the youth together, not only to be part of a council, but to just encourage them to be leaders, because that's what they're going to be. They're our future leaders. So we want to encourage them to be leaders on the council and to really engage in every aspect. So part of our video will include a little dialogue with my grandson and Annie's son and a couple of other grandchildren from our board members. So that's the Acjachemen Tongva Land Conservancy. And we are working in partnership with the Native American Land Conservancy. Again, we are so new that they have been instrumental in helping us to get up to speed. And so we have contracted with them for the first 3 years. They've agreed to provide guidance and support in matters of business. They're going to act as our fiscal agent, and they will act as property steward upon donation of the land. So a little bit about NALC. They're a Native American Land Conservancy and an organization which has worked since 1998 to protect and restore sacred sites, focusing on Aboriginal territories of tribes in present-day Southern California. Many of their locations are like in Cahuilla and Serrano territory, and they really have been effective in conserving these lands. As fiscal agents, they have been real easy to work with. We were given an initial donation, and they are helping us to utilize it in the best way possible. They would be property stewards. So basically they would be holding the title to the property and assist with the land stewardship and management until we are up and running fully. And of course, they'll be our business mentor. Okay, so that brings us to the beautiful place that we're speaking of today. We call it the Spirit of Place, but it is basically a 9,500-year-old village site, and it's located on the mesa of the Bolsa Chica in Huntington Beach. It's a sacred site, which is considered to be a place of knowledge. And it was a major conduit between Fimu, which is Catalina Island, and the river people of the villages inland. Hundreds of our ancestors were actually unearthed on this property and had to be reburied, along with tens of thousands of beads and hundreds of cogstones and discodials. So here we have pictures of these Cogstone Discs. There were hundreds of them that were unearthed along inside of some of the burials. And like normal, usually these beautiful artifacts don't go to the original peoples of the land, the descendants. It usually ends up in museums and colleges and private hands. And so there has been tons of studies on these cogstones, separate from the people. You know, they don't ask us what we think they are. They decide what they were used for. And so there's lots of really interesting things out there on the internet. of things that they think they were, but I don't agree with any of them. And the most recent study, though, actually confirms more what us as the descendants do believe. So a very recent study was just published by Cal State Fullerton. And first of all, they confirm that they are Tonga artifacts and that all of the stone used was locally sourced, because some of the rumors out there is that there's one other place in South America, so certainly they must have been traded from over there, or they must have been the original people here, and all these different crazy things, you know. So this study was actually able to match the stone to the quarries that are here in Southern California, and they're all in Tongva territories. And also the fact that they were saying that it was probably not even the Tongva and Acjachemen people who created these. It was probably peoples that predated us. And so now they're able to say, no, these actually are testing at 3,500 to 8,000 years old. And they are saying that they are in Tongva territories. Most of them here at Bolsa Chica, but there also have been many found along the Santa Ana River. So different Tongva villages as well. Oops, let me go back up. Ever-changing landscape of Bolsa Chica. And so now you can see why they've unearthed them and what they're doing and how deep they're digging, all for homes, because we don't have enough homes, right? Enough mansions over here in Huntington Beach. So this is Joyce Perry on the left here. She is our president, and she has been a monitor on site for many, many, many years, as well as a protector. And so this just shows you a little bit of the job and what they've uncovered. Let's see what I should also share. Most of it, what has been unearthed has been to build homes. Bolsa Chica is on private land, and that has been the hard part of us being able to steward it properly. Our only legal option was to ensure, in order to ensure that our ancestors and our belongings were handled properly and with dignity, was to create this conservancy. And a portion of the village still exists within the Godal property. The Mesa of Bolsa Chica is culturally significant and the sacred site to the Acjachemen and Tongva people. So this is what it looks like from overview. And you can see all these homes that are built everywhere and businesses. And then you can see this land that is not built upon and how close it is to the waters. So I'm going to go to another screen, and this will show you a better view of what lands we're trying to occupy here. So we have the Godal parcel that's quite large. We have this development area, which so far they are going to continue to develop homes on. And then we have this windward remainder. So there's been numerous organizations through the years, all tribal entities that have tried to fight to protect this site. And there's also been some other American, like, I think there's a land trust. Yeah, they're all land trusts, not conservancies, that have also been stepping up and trying to take possession of the lands. But we are the first that are of Native descent. And in 2016, there was a settlement that was negotiated between the Coastal Commission, the city of Huntington Beach, and Signal Landmark. So Signal Landmark is the owner of the windward property there. And the agreement would be that it would enable the Acjachemen Tongva Land Conservancy to hold title to our sacred site, but of course, just that portion there. Under the condition of development, the windward specific plan, the eastern 2.5 acres of the windward property and the entirety of the Godal parcel, the areas in green there on the map, will be donated to a qualified nonprofit in order for Signal Landmark to receive development permits for the remaining 2.5 acres in the windward property. So we have no choice on whether they can develop there or not. That was an agreement between the Coastal Commission and the city. But as you can see, the development area is about just a little bit bigger than the windward remainder, which we would be able to access. So the other thing is, even if they're granted the permits, if they start to find the same kind of artifacts that they have found on the other parts of the property where they cannot develop on, it's going to stop the project. And then hopefully it would then all be able to be given to Native hands. So land management and access. That's been a little tough because, like I said, we don't actually have physical management over the lands. And it's supposed to be because it's private property, it's supposed to be fenced off and nobody's supposed to be going in there. But actually, a lot of the neighborhood youth, they don't realize that it's a sacred site, and they've actually been going in there with bicycles, and they've created these jumps. They've actually moved the earth and created these big earth mounds that they can jump over. And so that's the other thing is as soon as we're able to take possession, it would be to educate everybody in the area to let them know how sacred this land is and that it's not to be used as a playground. We would of course welcome all peoples to come and learn about the people of the area and the culture and the land. But most importantly, we would love to have a cultural center. My input is minimally touching the land. I don't want to have a big building. It has to be more of a natural environment, maybe just like a kind of a round area that they can sit and listen. But we do need to go back to singing the songs, teaching how to make regalias and instruments, and teaching the stories and the language. So that would be top priority. So a lot of people ask, and so I asked her to go ahead and include this slide of how to help, because a lot of people ask. And so donations are going to be tax deductible, and they would go towards educational and outreach work, maintaining the land through traditional stewardship practices. And there is a lot that needs to be done to revive the lands. And then construction of a community center. And like I said, it's minimally invasive as possible. So this last screen is our website address, atlandconservancy.com, sorry. And that is it. So I'll stop share and open it up to any feedback, questions, anything.
That was really great. Thank you for sharing all of that, Tina. That really gives a great cross-section of the work you're doing, and it's very focused, and I like that. There's one specific parcel you have your sights on, and that makes it really tangible for people. So seeing those maps and all that is really really helpful. Is there some sort of restrictions on building the traditional dome-like thatched roof kind of structures that the Tongva were known for back in the day?
What was your first part of that question?
About the structure for the cultural center, the thatched roof dome kind of structure that the Tongva built traditionally.
That probably will be a kind of where we go with it, but we might have to make it more so that it's long-term, so that we don't have to keep replacing the thatching. And also, I'm sure we have to go by city limits. They're going to be concerned about fire or anything like that. But it would be something like that, very simple and comfortable and round.
Yeah, maybe you could use the mounds from those kids' dirt jumps to. So let's see, the NALC the Land Conservancy that's given you your fiscal sponsorship. Are you aware of other California nations that they're sponsoring in addition to y'all's group?
I know they have worked very closely with other groups, but I can't say that they're actually sponsoring or in the type of negotiations we're in with them.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that as just their own entity, they are managing a lot of lands.
Oh, that's very good.
Yeah, I have a
looked like-
question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, thanks. I was wondering about the cogstones and how you said that they were given to like schools or museums or private. Is a part of this conservancy able to like trying to get them back to the land?
That would be beautiful if we're able to get them, like because it is private property, they really can do anything that they want. And because we are not a federally recognized tribe, we don't have a whole lot of say about what happens with anything that's found on our tribal territories. But you know, in just making good relationships with people as we have with the landowners, it's not like it's been a loving relationship, you know, because they're have possession of our lands. They're not just giving it to us. Everything's a struggle, but we have to work with them as closely as possible. And so when we create those relations, we hope that somebody would be able to donate something like that so that we can share it with our people and our youth. I know right now, since Cal State Fullerton just did that study and they're in possession of 4 of them, I really want to contact them and ask if I can sit with them for a little while. Because I feel like, you know, you can receive so much information just being able to hold it or be in the vicinity.
So when the study came out, what did the study say those cogs were used for?
Well, they don't know. It's all up for interpretation, but that's why I'm saying they never asked the people, what do you think your ancestors used these for? Because we saw them being in the earth and the burials, right? So my personal thought is that they are to read the stars. Many of them were found in a specific burial with a specific person. So that person probably would have been the person who had the knowledge, was our starseer, and had those stories. Others have been found in different places, but usually in groups. But you see some outrageous things. Some people say they could be fishing weights. And it's like, no, we had fishing weights and they were like donuts. They didn't look like this. And a lot of these don't even have a hole in the middle. But all of them are cogged. You know, all of them have that kind of a star shape. So my personal feeling is it had to do with reading the stars.
Oh, okay. I thought I misunderstood them because I remember you were talking about that. And then I thought, maybe I'm misremembering. I thought maybe you mentioned a study where a different study, but that's the same study that.
Well, yeah, because they unearthed these very long ago. And so there's been a lot of people that have had the chance to study them and to put their input about what they think they are. So yeah, if you just Google it on the internet, you're gonna find tons of stories where people say, you know, it wasn't the Tonga or Acjachemen people, this peoples that predated them. This study here that I'm talking about says, no, it was Tongva, and here's the times that it was created. So a lot of what's on the internet is just people's ideas of what they are. Nobody will know for sure because obviously our ancestors are gone.
Thank you.
Hi, Tina. Thanks for that presentation. You know, every small town in the country has like a history center, and usually it's all like colonial settler history, as if history magically began in 18X. What is the interest from the city of Huntington Beach in supporting you guys? What is the level of partnership or allyship that they've provided? Because clearly the benefits of your site extend to the entire city. It would be a magnet as an attraction for many, many, many people. Do they support you?
We have had meetings with the California Coastal Commission. Have had meetings now with the city and the water board. We are a very new entity, and we just, like, at this last meeting yesterday, just got news that we got our 501c status. So it's just also new. We have not been able to actually take possession of the land, but I will say that we have been looked at very favorably, because all the organizations that have thus far tried to get possession of the land are not Native American and not descendants of the land. So the talks that we're having, they seem to be very open to it. But I will tell you, you know, our territories are very, very, very large. So like the Tongva, for instance, goes from San Fernando Valley beyond Newport Beach. And then we have shared territories over here with the Chumash, over there with the Acjachemen. So it's difficult. It's not without opposition. So even though we are a group of people that are both of Tongva and Acjachemen descent, there's other Tongva groups that, you know, think that they should get possession of the lands or whatever. So it's not without opposition from any group, internally or outside. But I think because this is the first group that is both tribes, we're willing to work together and open it up to learning for all our tribal peoples and all the surrounding peoples of the area. I think we're being looked at more favorably as to the past people who have tried to take possession.
Yeah, that's really good to know, because as you set up that cultural center and become an educational site, I mean, the city of Huntington Beach and the school district there, I mean, this would be an incredible amenity and cultural resource for them. So I was just interested in the allyships that you've got. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Don't everyone talk at once.
Any other questions? I also see we have a new guest who's Woman of the Hills. Do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yes, my name's Melissa. I live on Nisenan land at the edge of the inland forest. I had trouble getting on the Zoom.
Welcome.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you got to see, but if you have any questions, please feel free.
Yeah, and you can see what you missed on recording on the website, Melissa. No problem. Thanks for joining. I know you were trying. She was emailing me all throughout.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, this is so exciting. This is has been one of the smaller ones, but I feel like it's been really intimate, really well connected, and the presentation is like, it's textbook. While you're reading the vision, I was like, oh yeah, we could use that in our vision, you know. Like, it's so many parallels. Like, give the land back. It's pretty simple. Right, you wanna make reparations, you wanna reconcile with this horrific past, give us our land back. It's simple, right? We've been saying it for hundreds of years, like, give us our land back. And right now, in this time and space, it's happening.
Yes, that is beautiful.
I don't know if you saw the news last month out of Yurok territory on the Klamath River up in Northern California. They just received another huge parcel of land back in trust, bringing the total to over 120,000 acres that they've had returned in the last 3 years. 4 dams are coming down. Beavers are being reintroduced. Condors are being reintroduced. They bought an organic farm. They have a greenhouse where they're producing native plants starts to plant all over the environment. Like, they're crushing it. They're one of the few California Indigenous Nations that never were removed from their ancestral lands. And they're the largest federally recognized tribe by enrollment in the state of California. And what's happening with them is a really clear indicator of what's going to happen with the rest of the tribes. And if you're successful as a non-federally recognized tribe, that's going to set a really powerful benchmark for the rest of the tribes to follow, including the tribe where Melissa and I are, the Nisenan. They've been fighting for their federal recognition for, well, since they lost it with the Rancheria Act. But yeah, I'm very optimistic. And I've been doing this kind of advocacy work for a very long time, and never before has it been so continually successful. So I'm just so excited. There's so many solidarity groups popping up. There's like so many organizations that are trying to work outside of this ridiculous system that we live in to make the changes on the ground level. And that's why there's so much resistance to land back, because the narrative managers know that if they lose that control of the land, they're going to lose control of the narrative. And from my perspective, they lost control of the narrative a long time ago. And it's just a matter of all the little people getting organized. So I'm going to do a little shameless plug here. The Red Ant Collective in New Mexico received a formal endorsement from the Irish organization that I'm working with very closely. We both launched our organizations on May 1st, this past Saturday. And our statements of solidarity and points of unity specifically mention the tribes of the lands that we occupy and work and live on. And it's been unreal, the impact. We had some famous Irish writer wrote a custom poem for our group, and it just, like, everyone in our group was moved to tears. We couldn't even believe it. It was like this epic poem written specifically for our group, and not at all cliche or cheesy. It was just so moving and powerful. So these things are happening at a fever pitch. Yeah, the Joy just asked in the question in the chat. The group is called the Irish Diaspora Decolonization Alliance. It's IDDA, and we are the Bay Area chapter, the founding chapter. On our lunch date and afterward, between then and now, we've had 3 different requests for chapters in different parts of Turtle Island. We've had over 15 membership requests, and we've already had requests for people to sit on panels and talk about the things that are represented on our website. We made a really cool video after a really expensive brainstorming session with a design firm that gave us an insanely expensive package pro bono because she was Irish and she wanted to help. And she went through the whole process of doing this custom logo. So all of our logos on our website and our Twitter and Facebook and Instagram are all professionally done. And we made a little video, 30-second video, kind of teasing out the launch. And Indigenous people is the first 2 words in the video. Yeah, so it's a statement of solidarity and, you know, calling the similarities between the struggles of colonialism that Ireland has faced at the hands of the UK and the struggles of people all over the world at their various colonial masters. And yeah, it's really exciting. It's all changing so quickly.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I do have another question, and there's not enough time to answer it. Maybe you can direct me to also places to look. So first of all, I don't think I realized that Tongva was not a federally recognized tribe. So that's one piece I need to research. And then the group that is helping your new group who is Indigenous but owns or stewarding the lands or owning the lands. I'm very curious how that works, because I'm curious how that works, since we know that the government has been stewarding, the government has been controlled and has not done a good job per se. So how is this other entity have this purview of all this land? Because I perceive that they'll keep hopefully getting more land through more programs. So how does that work?
And it's just chunks of land, things that are able to be secured, but they are a conservancy. So you get it, legally, and you have it put in your name, and you become the stewards of the land, and which is what we are trying to do. We are a conservancy, and the goal is not to build upon the land, but to save the land. And especially with Bolsa Chica, this area that we're talking about, it's a wetlands. It's such an important feature for the whole environment. So we need to save these lands and not be controlling the water. Let it just go back to being natural.
Is there any chance in years to come a conservancy can change its mind? Like say, like I know there was a big thing going on with the Tihan Ranch Conservancy up a little north from here. Like, can a conservancy have all this land and then say, oh, we want to lease it to so-and-so to build on there, like, can they change?
Anything can be done if, legally, if you want to sell that land and you don't want to steward it any longer, anything can be done. But the whole goal of having a conservancy is because you want to preserve the land, you want to protect it, you want to keep them as open spaces.
Thank you, Tina.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think I just want to jump on that as well. I think it's really interesting. Native American Land Conservancy, because I've also heard of other conservancies that they don't give it back to Indigenous folks. So I think it's really great that you found that. I've never heard of them. I want to look more into them. And also, just like with federal recognition, that can sometimes be a 20-year process and very oppressive. So it's really interesting to find this way of conservancy to get land back. And I've learned so much in the presentation. So thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, Joy adds to answer your question. I don't know if you saw it, Carrie, that most California tribes are not federally recognized, and that she believes the judge blocked that Tejon Ranch development. But Tejon area has a huge history too, and that was supposed to be a reservation for all of us California tribes. We had treaties that were signed but never ratified, and we were supposed to be sent there and have the Sebastian Reserve. What happens in California is that the land is too valuable, and so they want it back. And so this property that we're talking about, it's a multi-million-dollar property. It's in Huntington Beach. It's by the water, So just like our Pavungna site, we only have 22 acres that's not built upon on the University of Cal State University Long Beach. Only 22 acres, but they always seem to want to take that little 22 acres and make it into a parking lot or make it into something, because they don't understand that that land just by itself is perfect for having ceremony. We don't have to build upon it. We don't have to have these structures that they think are beautiful. The nature is beautiful by itself. So it's just a different mindset, and getting people to view it the way we do, because we have such a deep connection to land. It's difficult. It's a battle.
Yeah, well said. I had an elder recently say that all land is sacred. He doesn't like the idea of sacred sites because everything's sacred. Every blade of grass, every insect, every rock, everything is sacred. So, and I heard another elder talking about the word sacred, and how in their language they didn't have a translation, and then that word to him had connotations of settler colonial concepts of spirituality and religion. So he didn't even like to use the word sacred, but it's a really great conversation, and it's such an honor to host it, and such an honor to host you and all the people on this call. I know that so much great work is being done. And every little screen that I look at is somebody doing awesome work in this world. and I want to support in any way that I can. So please feel free to use this platform to ask me to share things in social media or to boost things that you want people to support. Our entire energy is shifting toward reconnecting everyone with their Indigenous ancestry, no matter where it's from. And that's why the Irish component came in for me personally, and why Return California moved that direction for me, trying to find an Indigenous person to take, or people or group to take over this platform that we've built, and support in any way that we can, as our focus shifts, as the elders educate us, and as we remember our traditional ways. We can start to repair all the damage that settler colonialism has done to not only the land, but to ourselves, to the individuals, all of us, to our non-human relatives. Everybody suffered under this ridiculous system. So finding that common ground is really, really powerful. And yeah, it's just an honor to be a part of these conversations. So thank you.
And I'll just share also, you know, the word about the thought about sacred and what is sacred. Everything is sacred. We are sacred. Time is sacred. Water is sacred. But there are places that have a special energy, and our people always knew it. And those are the places where we held ceremony. Those are the places where we did our solstice ceremonies, our, you know, morning ceremonies. Every single place had a place that had that connection. And so that's what we refer to as sacred sites. It's not that anything is more sacred than the other, but it's that special energy that brings connection from us into spirit realm. So it's just funny that there's so many of those special places, from Bayona Creek all the way to beyond Boca Chica to Panay, actually. And they just have this amazing energy, and each place was for a different purpose.
Mm-hmm. That's the same with pretty much every tribal culture that I'm familiar with. Indigenous people all over the world have those same connections to certain spaces. Here, where Melissa and I are, is the Grinding Holes location. And there's stones all over the place that could be used for grinding stones. So why this particular spot? When you go there, you feel it. You know, there's like a vibration. It's a palpable thing. And so, you know, the gold in the Yuba River, right? The vibrational frequency of that element in nature with water flowing over it is a very specific thing. So it's understood what you mean when you say sacred sites. I just found it really interesting that the words that we use in English are so inadequate. The words, there's like a million different ways to say sacred in indigenous dialects all over the world. So it's really, really profound there.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say that as well. I feel like the English language can be a little limiting in what we're trying to portray, because sometimes when I think about it, living close to like the forest lawn or something, or these big burial sites that are for Americans, and how guarded they are, and how treated they are as sacred. Sometimes that word is used to teach, you know, white Americans that like we do also have something like that. We do have places that are sacred, and it's not okay to take ancestors apart, because we would not do that to your ancestors. So it's like, I think sacred has, it's, yeah, I think I've been trying to learn my own indigenous language, and it can be, English can feel limiting at times.
It surely is.
That's why it's so important to bring back our languages that went to sleep, because it's so incorporated with our environment. You know, you can't express yourself in the right way without using that language that's attached to the lands and to all the animals and plants and all the life around us. So it's really intriguing how interconnected language is to our environments.
And to Tina, I just wanted to add a thought about how your conservancy really has a distinct niche, because I've been familiar with how the Nature Conservancy operates and takes on stewardship of lands and does land set-asides. But they are part of that very convenient legacy of erasure of the indigenous stewardship and tending of lands, and they fall neatly into that framework where magically the indigenous people are not here, and all there is a sort of wild nature. And so the Nature Conservancy will then just step in and say, oh, we're setting aside this land to protect nature. And it's very unfortunate that there's such a strong institutional legacy that this whole environmental movement in the United States is so divorced from including the indigenous stewardship of this land as integral to what was here before the Euro invasion. And so, you know, your conservancy is so distinct because it says, you know, while we're protecting culture, we're also protecting nature, because nature and culture are integrally interwoven, and our language stems from this particular territory's nature, our culture stems from this particular territory's nature, and that's just much more profound than sort of this like universal placeless concept of nature, and we're protecting nature as if it's distinct. So I really appreciate that that's a distinction that you bring. And I think there was a really interesting chat going on the sidebar about the federally recognized tribes and how difficult it has been, which is also another institutional sort of barrier and intentionally placed challenge there to prevent tribes from being recognized. Because once you're recognized, you have more authority within the institutional legal structures to demand land boundaries and land and title and ownership. And so there is a reason why the Tongva have been, you know, denied that federal recognition. Absolutely. So I think it's also great to educate people on your site about the lack of federal recognition was one of the tools by which you were prevented from having ownership and access to land. I know you're sort of contorting yourselves to work within the legal requirements of land ownership and what's left in that sort of cancerous growth of housing developments that you showed on that satellite imagery. But I think it's really valuable to say all of these are not sort of inherited from God. They're created and intentional to prevent us from, you know, expressing our access and relationship and rightful ownership of this land. So those are just some thoughts I had about the sort of legacy of erasure in the environmental movement in this country.
Yes, definitely. You're spot on. The only difference is that we don't consider ownership, but more stewardship, because we can't own the lands any more than we can own a people's or anything else like that. But yeah, we also never separated ourselves from nature. We're part of it.
Any separation was sort of contrived and created and constructed really to make it more sort of palatable to the Euro invaders, that this is just land we're taking and not erasing an entire people, not genociding an entire people. It's sort of a moral whitewashing. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And they didn't only do it to the people, they did it to the lands and they did it to the waters. It was all about control. It is all about control, and it's all about finances. What can they get out of it? There's always some money behind it.
You all have seen the pile of bison skulls. They killed millions of bison in the plains. The first time I saw that image, I was so horrified. Like, I can't even imagine a consciousness that would allow you to pose with such an atrocity, as if it was something to be proud of. Like, it's just incomprehensible.
And I mean, I'm sure you guys recently heard about the Rick Santorum comments on CNN. I mean, it's sort of history is present. It's just reproducing itself until you disrupt it, and really forcefully disrupt it.
Yeah.
Do you think it's because of the time right now with, there's so much going on, and we know that if the environment's not taken care of, it's in terms of humans that, it's sort of this other big thing. But what do you think about those who are active within these environmental groups and starting with, because it's membership also, and then some people are voted in, and is it worthwhile to start to bring these conversations in during this time? We've been talking about reparations, right, for both descendants of enslaved Black Africans and the original peoples who lived here. What if in these big organizations, people started to say, well, isn't it time we bring in land acknowledgement? Oh, and while we're at it, we're talking about nature all the time, but the indigenous didn't separate from nature, like started bringing this lens to it. It might be a way to start. We're not gonna, there's so many things we're not gonna see, but we can be planting these seeds and starting this right now. And I think that there's an energy, because as I was listening to you speak, is it Ansu? I'm not sure. While I was listening to you speak, I was thinking of all the people I know, including myself, who support a lot of environmental things that, oh, right. Like this kind of this thing went off in my head. And maybe that's also part of this, like coming at every different angle that we can and bringing it into that, but then also still fighting in the way, Tina, that your new group is. Because I always had this personal dream. If I had the money that it takes to buy land, I would buy the land and just let it be. Mm-hmm. I always, those are my dreams, driving through Coldwater Canyon and Laurel Canyon. Oh, there's these little parcels. Oh, I would just like to buy them. Done. So I don't know. I think that it's also bringing people into the conversations and educating people who have the wealth to start to turn their lens. And it just got me kind of excited about this possibility.
Yeah, I agree with you. And your first comment, we actually do a lot of networking with environmentals. It's important. We have a climate issue and it's real. And until we start getting that nourishment back into the soil so things can grow healthy and grow more abundant and get all those invasive species out and natural species in, it's just ongoing. But yes, we work a lot with them, and it's important to have those allies and let them know. Because that's the first thing they ask is, can you come and do a land acknowledgement? But that's not enough. We need you to be good stewards. We need you to start caring for the lands the way we care for the lands. And that's the only way we're going to do it, because this place is too big and there's too many people for any one group to do it.
Yeah, I stole your car, but I'm keeping it. What good is an acknowledgement? Right? It's not worth the words that are, the air that form the words. It's give me a break already. That's been Return California's mission, right? We want to amplify these voices that have been systemically and institutionally silenced for the longevity of this country. And giving land back is not about ownership. We don't belong. I mean, the land doesn't belong to us. We belong to the land, right? So if we give it back, it's not about ownership. It's about restoring it. Return California is about returning the land to its pre-colonial splendor. Land back is about returning land back to its pre-colonial splendor. It has nothing to do with ownership, and no one is going to lose anything, but everyone gains. When we restore the health of our land, we restore our own health, because we are the land. We belong to the land. And
I will just add that to your point, Carrie, there's you're really going to come up against you're really going to create some abrasion there, because people have a lot invested in education, in the whole sort of mindset about they have their own sort of way of feeling morally good, because everyone wants to feel good, you know, about who they are. They don't want to feel like they're bad people. And so they've created an entire narrative about we're doing good for the environment. I was just reminded recently of this sort of thing that exploded in the California Native Plant Society about how it is that they're comfortable really with dealing with native plants, and not really comfortable with the integrally interwoven concept of native people having allowed these native plants to flourish, and this entire state of California was just blooming with native plants until the Euro invasion, and then it became lawns and all this grotesque twisted thing. So all of a sudden you have Native Plant Society people who are like, yes, we love, you know, this and this plant, and sort of silo it and see it from a narrow biological you know, understanding, and then refuse to sort of see the ecology of native plants as anything other than sort of material relationships between soil, atmosphere, and everything, without seeing that land transformation by Euro invaders has has affected the atmosphere, has affected the groundwater, has affected what's on the land, and you can't really separate that, but they have successfully separated, and there's just incredible investment, institutional, financial, cultural, moral, in seeing sort of the environment as separate from people. And so you can get a PhD from the University of California system in, quote, land management, and never have to deal with Indigenous Californians. You know, it's just, it's a travesty, it's a grotesque perversion, but that's the system that served Euro-American colonization. So to interrupt that, I think conservancies like Tina has just described are really the only way, because it would be too hard to sort of go against that model. But when you show and demonstrate another relationship to land and have a place where you can demonstrate that, it clicks, especially with people like yourself, like ourselves really. And it says, oh gosh, this is the way to live. This is the original thing that feels integral and right on this territory. And this is the alternative story of this land. And when that's in your face, then it's sort of an easier thing to swallow for people who for 150 years have been, you know, telling another story. And
well
that's
said, Joy, you had a question. You and Ansu started talking at the same time, I noticed.
Yeah, I just had some comments. I'm curious about Tina's reaction to some of this too, but so I work at a university, and I work in an American Indian studies space with, you know, people in charge who are Native. So our approach to things is probably different than the larger system, you know, the larger bureaucracy. And I've found that land acknowledgements, although they can be empty and they can just be this kind of feel-good thing that people do without really taking action, I feel like it's kind of a nice gateway drug to wokeness. I've noticed that a little bit with some of my colleagues that in the main library and elsewhere, that we all know that systemic racism is filled with well-intentioned liberals as well as other people. You know, it doesn't matter how well-intentioned you are. Generally, if you're white or Western, or your experience is a certain experience, even if you don't want to, you're part of that system. And so I have always encouraged my colleagues in other spaces that are doing things still wrong. You know, they're still doing things that are not quite right. But if they want to do a land acknowledgement, I do encourage them to do it, because it gets them thinking about it. It gets them proud to be a part of that. And I always offer up as much information and sort of context and connections with the actual tribes, or at least knowledge that has been disseminated by the tribes as possible. I know the other thing that happens is tribal people and Tongva people are called upon a lot to, like, essentially free labor in kind of service of being you know, culturally aware, and, oh, we'd like you to come bless this event, or we'd like you to come do this. And there needs to be an understanding that some of that is our own responsibility as non-natives and allies, is that we can acknowledge Native people, and then we can also do something about it a little bit. But it's definitely frustrating, and I understand why a lot of people think it's an empty gesture, but I am curious what Tina thinks about it, whether or not it can be kind of transformed into maybe next step awareness of action, and what her thoughts are on that.
Yeah, thank you, Joy. I actually do believe that land acknowledgements are important. And I do teach a lot of corporate America how to create land acknowledgements, because, and Carrie knows, I've worked a little bit with her group, that I really feel that it has to come from the heart. You can't just take somebody else's words and say, oh, we're going to say this. Mm-hmm. It doesn't work. You have to speak something that really feels good to you as a person, as an organization, and something that you're willing to step up to and really mean. Mm-hmm. And I also tell them that it's not to be just lip service. It's a handshake. It's an acknowledging of the people's place and lands. And everything that lives in your area, in your territory. So it's not just about human, it's about your surroundings, acknowledging that. And then what can you do next? That's just a start. You're opening the door, you're shaking a hand. Now what can you do to support the lands, the peoples, everything that's around you? That's the only way we can be community, if we're willing to take it a step further and create a relationship. But it starts with that land acknowledgement. It starts with acknowledging first.
Yeah, I also wanted to add, like, I feel that separation. I actually just listened to Craig Torres, Tongva elder, give a talk as well, and he talked about separation, and I feel that there's a lot of segregation in the colonial world that we live in, and especially you can see that with environmental groups at times, where it's like we focus on the environment and we focus on social issues and we focus on business, when everything's so holistic and connected. And that's how my elders teach me, and that's how Indigenous people understand things to be. So in my experience with environmental groups, I can feel that separation. And sometimes it feels as if Indigenous people are not working towards environmental groups, but like our organizations, our Indigenous organizations are environmental organizations. They are social organizations, and not just Indigenous folks, but Black folks as well. Black folks there's lots of Black environmental organizations that have been doing work as well. So sometimes when when we're called in to do something for an environmental groups that is white led and white centered, sometimes it's more just like, how can you support us? How can you support what we're working towards? Because we're working towards the same thing. So it's more about how can these institutions and organizations center Indigenous voices, center Black voices, instead of us helping your agenda.
Has anyone seen or heard about the City of Ghosts?
Yes.
We were just
When
talking
you
about it
mentioned-
before you came
Yeah.
on. Hey, there's one of the stars right there. Look at that.
Yes, we just talked about that. My grandson Honor is the voice of Jasper, right?
Yeah,
So the little
Jasper in the
character.
house.
And there's Liana showing Tawanga
Yeah.
her background.
Love it.
I've been searching for it. I'm so happy to finally have that connection, and I can't believe it happened today.
I have a girlfriend who's an executive at Netflix, and I told her, I said, everybody in my Facebook feed, all my Native friends and colleagues are loving this show, and she's like, that's really good to hear. So I love that there are more and more opportunities in entertainment right now. It's still not enough, but you can see it starting to expand. So that's really exciting. Because I think,
sorry, Joy.
Sorry, I was just going to say, like, being familiar with, tribal depictions, Native people's depictions of themselves is kind of the first step to the broader popular culture starting to get a clue, about some of these things. So it's exciting. I'm so glad that that your grandson is part of that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm actually more thinking about it because the narrative, I didn't realize it was produced, or I don't think it's produced by Indigenous people, but the episode on which Craig is depicted, you instantly recognized him. The cartoon of him is so close to who he is, and Megan as well, the poet. That story was so powerful because it just created this alternative understanding of place and relationship to land history. And I think that's the model I would love to see, because it then is less threatening to the sort of the hierarchy of power that has been embedded in California for 150 years. And so it just is a much more easy, accessible way to enter that conversation about Indigenous California. And I'm just thrilled to know that you have a family member who's on the show. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and the creators were really great to work with, very open-minded. Actually, all the episodes are wonderful, but because this one was close to home and so accurate, it was especially beautiful. I think they got more views on this particular episode.
Yeah, Elizabeth Ito, I think she's Asian American.
Yeah, Little Tokyo. We actually had relations with one of the creators. What was the other? You remember their names? Trying to remember. Elizabeth Ito. Yeah, that was one. There was 3 people that we dealt with, really.
And Akko.
Akko.
As I've been listening to like the separation, disembodiment, that's really some of the results of white supremacy. And that's one of the things that we haven't named. What we're talking about is white supremacy. So, and even with what you were saying, Ansu, with the powers that be, and this is, I was talking when I got all excited, I was also talking from another sort of place of meeting people where they're at. And the organization that Tina was talking about, I'm involved with Aware LA, which is the Alliance of White Anti-Racist Everywhere. And then White People for Black Lives is our action-oriented team. And we are trying to actively bring in folks where they are and have those uncomfortable conversations and everything that goes around with looking at one's whiteness and starting to realize the full sort of what's going on, and it's like an onion peel. I feel like an onion because layers continue to come down for a long time now. So with what you said about native plants, our yard is drought tolerant, mostly native plants. And for years, I've been thinking, and especially recently, I want to put an acknowledgement of the land we're on, like in the front, so everyone, when they're walking by, will read that. And the separation you talked about, because Teddy Payne Theodore Payne, which is not far from where we live, is like, we love that place. And it just got me thinking, oh, I wonder what their relationship is. Like, I'm making all these new connections now, and sometimes people don't see what's right in front of their face until it's named. And you're right, a lot of people do this because they're for a million different reasons. And so I've been practicing how to not kind of to bring people in. And it's a long, hard road. And it's also, the one other thing I wanted to name is, when you were talking, it reminded me of abolition, tearing down certain things and building other things. And so there are many abolitionists who would have said, no, Carrie, you can't. When I made that suggestion, I was making it knowing, like, oh, as an abolitionist, can you go into that, the nature orgs and really do that? And there are other people who say, tear it down, build it up. But we know that things don't come down right away, but we're building things right now. And one of the things that I was told that an elder in the movement told them was, the train was moving when I got on, it'll be moving when I get off. So I know there's going to be a lot that I will never get to see, but there's so many things happening around us now that I don't know. I have, in these times and in these groups, I have lots of hope, and that keep me going when there's that other reality, many of what we've been talking about.
Well, I mean, I'm very cautious about using any of these categories that modern Americans really use, simply because then it means I have to participate in their game. And I think what Indigenous people really have is, and that's why I'm creating this course on Indigenous knowledge systems, because what Indigenous people really have is a whole other worldview. And I think if we can promote that narrative as a counter, it's just a bit easier. Otherwise, you fall into the boxes created by white Americans for white supremacy. And even with white supremacy, I mean, I was just reading something about how the Irish were actually not considered white because they were lower order, and the Serbians were not considered white. Armenians were not considered white until, it became convenient. So there was just this whole conversation about whiteness even is weird. So, I mean, I really love projects like the City of Ghosts episode that created a whole different world and a whole different narrative that it's easier for you to step into and to create a new relationship with the land, because then we don't reach that point which you showed with your hand. It's so clear that so many people have so much invested in institutions that you're just going to create resistance instead of creating flow. And I want for organizations like Tina's to have ease with which to develop their own heritage and show that to the world. That's just my 2 cents.
I think we're coming down to the wire, right, John?
Oh, I don't ever set a time limit on these things. Like, I'm all about Indian time. We start when it feels right, and we end when it feels right. I thought we were going to end when I started giving my pitch about the Irish thing, and then we ended up talking for another 45 minutes. So, that's how this works. Like I said, I don't want to co-opt the conversation, but it's so deeply relevant to all of the things that we've been talking about, because each one of us individually has our own narrative and our own history and our own descendants and all these things. So the whole point of Return California is return things back to the way they were, back to balance. And so the action that each of us takes to do that starts within. So each one of us, when we decolonize our minds and our hearts and our day-to-day actions, and we stop participating in this nonsensical narrative and do the work that needs to be done, that's when we start to see this change, and why I'm so excited about everything that's happening in our world right now. It's gonna get a lot uglier before it gets better. But when people face immense tragedy, that's when really meaningful change happens. Sometimes it takes experiencing tremendous loss before you realize, the mistakes that we've made. So, such a beautiful presentation, so well thought out, Tina. So glad to finally see it. We've been talking about it for months, so it's really cool to finally see that presentation, and an honor to share it with everyone on the call. So thank each and every one of you for joining. Is there a traditional departure saying, like?
Yes, but before we actually close out, I see that Washoyo just joined. I don't know if you want to say hello really quickly, but she's another Tongva relative.
I'm not sure if I can. Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Oh, you can, okay. Sorry, I thought I was muted. I came to this late. I saw Joy Holland had posted, and I was interested in seeing the presentation. So hopefully I can get maybe a link to the recording. It'd be great.
Yeah, it'll be on our Return California website. Do you need the link? I can put it in the chat for you. And it'll also be on
Thank you so much.
On our YouTube page. And let's see if I can get that going. Thanks for catching that, Tina. I didn't see her come on, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
She's too modest. You gonna tell us about her a little bit?
Oh no, that's up to her to what she wants to say. But she is a beautiful artist. I don't know, plug, Washoyo.
Can you tell us about the Marvel thing, or is that too much to ask?
I don't want to take away from the conversation about the land and everything.
We're done.
Oh, okay. Well, I work as an Indigenous artist here in Southern California. Yeah, so I try to bring Indigenous voices to pop culture narrative, and then also work on stories from our own tribal people.
Awesome.
Well, I'm glad you were able to join in, even if you missed a bit of it, but you'll catch up later. And yeah, and I want to thank everybody that is in our circle. I know time is so valuable and so important, and for you to spend your time with us here, it's a real privilege. So thank you so much. And yes, what we would say is the Hovgo Ami, may you go well. And too much we say, may you travel well.
Thank you all so much.
I'm going to stop the recording, and thank you all.
All right, thank you.